Hey guys, welcome back to another video. I'm Chef Lance with Deja Food and Decor. Today's video is going to be a recipe video for my deep fried shrimp top deviled eggs. Now, if you have not yet, like, subscribe, and share this video to become a part of the Deja Foodies here at Deja Food and Decor TV, where you can get a lot of new and innovating recipes, just like the recipe I'm going to share with you today, to spice up an old dish. Now, I'm from the South. So one thing about the South is no matter what event we go to, there's always gonna be deviled eggs. It could be a baby shower, a funeral, a wedding, a birthday party, a family reunion, a graduation. I think you guys get the drift. At any event, you can show up in the South and see deviled eggs, but not all the time will you have deviled eggs that are as special as these that I'm about to show you today. Okay, so let's talk about the ingredients that we're gonna need for our deep fried shrimp deviled eggs. We're just gonna need some hot sauce. We have some chives, some garlic. We have some mustard. We have vegetable oil for frying. Now the recipe that I'm gonna be making, I'm just gonna do 10 of the deviled eggs. So that's 5 eggs, but you're gonna need some additional eggs. So I have a couple extra in there because we're gonna need that to coat the eggs before we actually fry them. We'll also need a little bit of sweet relish. I have a couple tablespoons of mayo. We have some shrimp back there that we're gonna be using for the top of the deviled eggs. We have about a cup of flour and a cup of panko breadcrumbs. So we have the paprika, the onion powder, we have black pepper, and you will need salt because you will salt to taste as well. And then we also have some olive oil for sauteing our shrimp that will go on top of our deviled eggs. So these are all items you probably have already in your refrigerator. We'll get more in depth into the actual measurements that I'm using as I'm preparing the eggs, but these are the items that you'll need to make, you know, an outstanding hors d'oeuvre with the deep fried shrimp top deviled eggs. Okay, the first thing you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna boil your eggs. Now, what I wanna remind you about the recipe is I'm just preparing 5 eggs, which will give me 10 deviled eggs. But the measurements that I'm gonna be giving you for the video, you can actually use for a dozen eggs, okay? So you just wanna boil your eggs, you wanna go ahead and deshell your eggs, and now what we wanna do is we wanna separate the egg. We wanna separate the white from the yolk. So you'll just cut your egg in half, and then just separate the yolk into a separate little pot or dish, and then you want to keep your whites together. So that's all we're doing, is we're just separating the yolk. Now that we have our whites and our yolk separated, we want to go ahead and add in the other ingredients that's going to make the filling for our deviled eggs once we fried them. Now, I like to put a little bit of onions in mine, but the onions are definitely optional. For about 12 eggs, which will be a dozen eggs, you're going to want to use like roughly about 4 to 5 tablespoons of mayo. But I'm gonna kind of cut that in half because I'm only doing 5 eggs. You wanna also go ahead and put in, I like to use sweet relish. So I put a little bit of sweet relish in there. Roughly about a tablespoon will do, just to give it a little flavor. Now I like to put a dash of hot sauce, just to give it a little zing. Put in just about a half a teaspoon of onion powder. You can put some salt in as well. And I just put a little dash of black pepper. If you're doing like a full dozen of eggs, you probably want to use like about a half a teaspoon of black pepper. And then if you're doing like a dozen of eggs, you probably want to use about, should have shook that up, but you should probably going to want to use about a tablespoon of mustard. And you can use Dijon mustard. I just use the mustard that's right inside my refrigerator at the time. So then you want to get this mixture, and you actually want to mix this together and get all of those ingredients actually mixed very well. And there you have it. That's going to be the filling for our deviled eggs. Okay, so now that we have the mixture for the inside of the eggs in the refrigerator, going to let that chill. Now what we're going to do is we're going to coat our eggs and get them ready to be fried. Now the extra eggs that you didn't boil, you're just going to crack those eggs and actually just whip those eggs, and so that we have a dipping mixture. Now the key to getting the egg correct is that first you want to go ahead and you want to dip the egg in flour, or you actually want to just coat the egg in flour. Once you coat the egg in flour, that's when you're going to go to the egg wash, and from the egg wash you're going to go to the breadcrumbs. So we just dip it in flour, then we want to go through the egg wash, and once we go through the egg wash, we just want to go ahead and cover him with panko seeds. And don't be afraid to make a mess on this, because you're gonna make a mess. And I like to coat all of my eggs first before I actually fry my eggs. In fact, I like to coat my eggs and actually refrigerate. Okay, so once you have all of those eggs coated, they'll actually look like this. I actually put them on a plate and I go ahead and put them in the refrigerator for a couple of minutes right before I fry them. Like I said, I just like to put them in the refrigerator just so that everything that's on the egg will actually seal, and it'll give me a golden brown crisp crust to the deviled egg. Okay guys, so here I have some peanut oil that I'm allowing to warm up. I have just a little dry tray here, which is just a plate, and I have some paper towels on it for us to actually transfer our eggs from the hot grease onto those, to actually let those drain and let those cool. So we have that. I invested in this. Listen, I didn't even know what this was called until I had to look it up in the video, and it's actually called a Japanese strainer. Let me make sure I'm saying that right. It is, yes, it is a Japanese strainer. So it's good to invest in one of these if you're going to be doing deviled eggs, because it gives you the mobility of cupping something that's actually floating in the grease versus you actually using a spatula and burning yourself and stuff like that. So you want to invest in one of these. It's called a Japanese strainer. I got this right from Walmart. I think I paid like $1 and $1.50 for this. So we have our setup here. Our oil is getting ready, and we want to go ahead and pull our eggs out of the refrigerator. Now remember, we coated our eggs earlier, so now that they've had a chance to actually sit in the refrigerator and get a firm to them, they're actually ready to go in the grease and actually start to form that great crust that we're going to have on our deep fried shrimp deviled eggs. Okay, now that we have our oil to the right temperature, we're going to go ahead and drop our eggs into the peanut oil. Focus. I promise you all these do not take long to actually fry. So you just want to drop them all in. Just want to allow your eggs to get a nice brown coating on them. On average, I could say you could probably leave them down, like, if your oil is on medium to high heat, you could probably leave them down for about, I would say, around 2 minutes. And then we'll be ready to scoop these out. And yes, that's hot, and yes, I'm burning my hands, but once we pull those out, we have our eggs and they're fried. So now we're just gonna let these drain, and then we're gonna get ready to dress them up. Take a small saucepan. I'm gonna put in like roughly about 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil. We're gonna let that olive oil heat up just a little bit. And when that olive oil heats, we're gonna take the shrimp that we had that we're gonna actually just saute for the top of our eggs. We're gonna actually sit them in that olive oil. Be careful. You wanna put those in that olive oil, and you wanna actually like let them sear in that olive oil. While they're in the olive oil, go ahead and add about 1/2 teaspoon of minced garlic. And I'm going to cut the heat down just a little bit on this once they actually start searing and frying in there. I'm going to add a little bit of garlic. I'm going to add a little bit of onion powder. And then I'm just going to add in a couple of fresh scallions. And we're just going to let them marinate in that flavor. You can salt and pepper to taste. I'm just not going to salt and pepper. But you can salt and pepper to taste. And once these have actually gotten a good sear to them from the olive oil, and it's in there with the garlic and the fresh green onions, you can just go ahead and cut your stove off on this and let this rest as well. Here you have it. You have our fried whites, and then we have the yolk mixture that we mixed together earlier. We took that out and we actually stuffed the middle of those fried whites. And now all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna sprinkle this with just a little bit of paprika. And once I've sprinkled that with paprika, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna place our shrimp inside those eggs. And if you drip some of the drippings from the pan that the shrimp was in, those green onions and garlic, that's all fine. It'll all marry in the taste of the egg. Okay. And then finally what we're gonna do is we're just gonna throw just some, I have some chives. Just a little dried chive on those eggs. And there you have it. That's my deep fried shrimp deviled egg.